I should put a little text field in here. Hello, party people. I got this little, yeah. Text. I'm just setting this thing up while people are showing up. Let's go like that. Yeah. Oh, that belongs here. Oh dear. Wow, I really whiffed that. It doesn't matter. Okay. Wow. How am I gonna do this? Copy. I'm amusing myself here. Paste. Remove. I gotta find some place where all these images have room in common. Ah, I'll do it later. Oh my gosh. Hi G. How you doing? Some of these images are nice. I tried to see if the guy who did these would be up for doing my new ones, the new person, but he seemed very busy. Mind you, I asked like around Christmas time. I may shoot him another line. Got some pretty good rates. Some of these are more appropriate than others, but I was like, here's a list of things I need. Can you do them? And he went, yep. So he did them, and I liked the rate he did them for. I really like that cat, the jaguar in a box, though. Hmm? That is so, yeah. And drinking the oil. Well, you know how it is. I should actually mute a few things while I remember to do so. Mute. Mute. Those are the ones most likely to talk. And then this one. I should have done this a lot sooner, but I didn't. Yeah, I don't even know what it was. Mute. Bloop. All right. Well, in about a minute, I'm going to start this thing. In the interim, I have to find some space that's in common with all of these and just put like a little, hey, I'm busy or something. And I just sort of decided to do that at the very last second, so it was less than ideal. Here's some motor oil. Come on, Jaguar, you can get it. Mohawk Jaguar. Okay. Well, it's just you and me right now, baby. Let's go. I've waited enough. Robo Jaguar needs all the motor oil, though. It's very true. Got to keep that motor purring, you know what I mean? Of course, you know what I mean. So, I want to tell you before I really get into this that the first chapter is really kind of a bit long winded. It's about as far as I read. And then it really kicks in. I made sure to at least, well, we'll see how it goes, right? But I wanted to tell you that there's like 100 chapters and 1,300 pages. So We're gonna be at this for whoa, 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 whoa. Just what I mean. We're gonna be at this for a while. Yeah. Hi, Mantra. Just in time. I did my obligatory let's wait a few minutes for Mantra to show up thing. And it worked. So just before I start, I just wanted to tell you, just to repeat myself, there's 100 chapters. There's something like 1,300 pages. There's a lot. 1326. Actually, we've gotten through 13 pages of prelude, so there's 13 pages. And the first chapter is a little bit on the tedious side, just because it's going through all this background stuff. Well, I started pretty much right on the nose. I'll make sure to start a little bit earlier, just to make sure that Twitch actually kicks in time. Let's get rolling, shall we? So it will get rolling after this first chapter. Okay. Chapter 1 of 100. The divine root conceives, its source revealed, mind and nature nurtured. The great Tao is born. The poem says, ere chaos divide, with heaven and earth a mess, no human appeared in this murkiness. When Pangu broke the nebula apart, the dense and pure defined did clearing start. Enfold all life supreme's humaneness would, and teach all things how good they should. And teach all things how become good they should. Oh, that's some awkward dog roll. To know cyclic time's work, if that's your quest, real tales of woe dispelled on Journey West. We heard that, in the order of heaven and earth, a single period consisted of 129,600 years. Dividing this period into 12 epochs were the 12 stems of Zi, Chu, Yin, Mao, Chen, Si, Wu, Wei, Shen, Yu, Shu, and Hai, with each epoch having 10,800 years. Considered as the horary cycle, or horary cycle, I'll have to look that up later. The sequence would be thus. The first sign of dawn appears in the hour of Zi, while at Chu, the cock crows. Daybreak occurs at Yin, and the sun rises at Mao. Chen comes after breakfast, and by Si everything is planned. At Wu, the sun arrives at its meridian, and it declines westward by Wei. The evening meal comes during the hour of Shen, and the sun sinks completely at Yu. Twilight sets in at Shu, and the people rest by the hour of Hai. This sequence may also be understood macrocosmically. At the end of the epoch of Shu, heaven and earth were obscure and all things were indistinct. With the passing of 5,400 years, the beginning of Hai was the epoch of darkness. This moment was named chaos because there were neither human beings nor the two spheres. After another 5,400 years, Hai ended, and as the creative force began to work after great perseverance, the epoch of Zi drew near and again brought gradual development. Oopsie. Xiao Kangji said, when to the middle of Zi winter moved, no change by heaven's mind had been approved. The male principle had but barely stirred, but the birth of all things was still deferred. Oh. Interesting. So, whoa, let me just change. There we go. Horary astrology is an ancient branch of horoscopic astrology in which an astrologer attempts to answer a question by constructing a horoscope for the exact time at which the question was received and understood by the astrologer. So, essentially, now. Trying to answer the past with a question from now. I was just wondering if it was like horary or orary. That was my chief thing. Gotta say it right, you know? At this point, the firmament first acquired its foundation. With another 5,400 years came the Z epoch. The ethereal and light rose up to form the four phenomena of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the heavenly bodies. Hence it is said, the heaven was created at Z. This epoch came to its end in another 5,400 years, and the sky began to harden as the Chu epoch approached. The classic of change said, great was the male principle, supreme the female. They made all things in obedience to heaven. And I too hate a gloopy sky. At this point, the earth became solidified, and I also like my earth to be sufficiently solid. In another 5,400 years after the arrival of the Chu epoch, the heavy and the turbid condensed below and formed the five elements of water, fire, mountain, stone, and earth. Hence it is said, the earth was created at Chu. With the passing of another 5,400 years, the Chu epoch came to its end, and all things began to grow at the beginning of the Yin epoch. The Book of Calendar said, the heavenly aura descended, the earthly aura rose up. Heaven and earth copulated, and all things are born. At this point, heaven and earth were bright and fair. The yin had intercourse with the yang. In another 5,400 years, during the yin epoch, humans, beasts, and fowls came into being, and thus the so-called three forces of heaven, earth, and man were established. Hence it is said, man was born at yin. That rattling was me taking my headset off. I realize I should probably monitor myself if I'm going to make a good recording of it, but let's get through it first and we'll worry about that. Following Pan Gu's construction of the universe, the rule of the three august ones, and the ordering of the relations by the five thearchs, the world was divided into four great continents. They were the east Purvavidaha continent, the west Aparagodaniya continent, the south Jambudvipa continent, and the north Uttarakuru continent. This book is solely concerned with the east Puravivadeha continent. That should be a hard U. Purvivadeha. And Texas. But we don't talk about that. Excuse me. You just killed me today. Whew. Oh, that's rough. Beyond the ocean, there was a country named Aeolai. It was near a great ocean, in the midst of which was located the famous flower fruit mountain. This mountain, which constituted the chief range of the 10 islets and formed the origin of the 3 islands, came into being after the creation of the world. As a testament to its magnificence, there is the following poetic rhapsody. Its majesty commands the wide ocean. Its splendor rules the jasper sea. Its majesty commands the wide ocean, when, like silver mountains, the tide sweeps fishes into caves. Its splendor rules the jasper sea, when snow-like billows send forth serpents from the deep. On the southwest side pile up tall plateaus. From the eastern sea arise soaring peaks. There are crimson ridges and portentous rocks, precipitous cliffs and prodigious peaks. Atop the crimson ridges, phoenixes sing in pairs. Before the precipitous cliffs, the unicorn singly rests. At the summit is heard the cry of golden pheasants. In and out of stony caves are seen the strides of dragons. In the forests are long-lived deer and immortal foxes. On the trees are divine fowls and black cranes. Strange grass and flowers never wither. Green pines and cypresses always keep their spring. Immortal peaches are ever fruit-bearing. Lofty bamboos often detain the clouds. Within a single gorge, the creeping vines are dense. Do you want to deal with that, G, or shall I? The grass color of meadows all around is fresh. This is indeed the pillar of heaven, where 100 rivers meet. the Earth's great axis in 10,000 kalpas unchanged. Didn't want to steal your thunder. I'd sort of stifled the last few. Yeah, but how will everybody know that I'm an amazing streamist if I don't buy an audience of like 500 people or something? The thing that amuses me is they keep coming by every day and they drop a turd like that, but there's no URL that ever shows up. It is like, I realize it costs them little effort, but it is literally fruitless. I will never know. There was, on top of that very mountain, an immortal stone, which measured 36 feet and 5 inches in height, and 24 feet in circumference. The height of 36 feet and 5 inches corresponded to the 365 cyclical degrees, while the circumference of 24 feet corresponded to the 24 solar terms of the calendar. On the stone were also 9 perforations and 8 holes, which corresponded to the palaces of the 9 constellations and the 8 trigrams. Though it lacked the shade of trees on all sides, it was set off by epidendrums on the left and right. That's a good word, I just don't know what it means. Since the creation of the world, it had been nourished for a long period by the seeds of heaven and earth, and by the essences of the sun and the moon, until, quickened by divine inspiration, it became pregnant with a divine embryo. One day, it split open, giving birth to a stone egg about the size of a playing ball. Exposed to the wind, it was transformed into a stone monkey, endowed with fully developed features and limbs. Having learned at once to climb and run, this monkey also bowed to the 4 quarters, while 2 beams of golden light flashed from his eyes to reach even the palace of the pole star. The light disturbed the great benevolent sage of heaven, the celestial Jade Emperor of the most venerable Diva, who, attended by his divine ministers, was sitting in the cloud palace of the golden arches, in the treasure hall of the divine mists. That is very sad. Upon seeing the glimmer of the golden beams, he ordered 1,000-mile eye and fair wind ear to open the south heaven gate and to look out. At this command, the 2 captains went out to the gate, and, having looked intently and listened clearly, they returned presently to report, "Your subjects, obeying your command to locate the beams, discovered that they came from the Flower Fruit Mountain at the border of the small Aeole country, which lies to the east of the great Purvivedaha continent. On this mountain is an immortal stone that has given birth to an egg. Exposed to the wind, it has been transformed into a monkey who, when bowing to the 4 quarters, has flashed from his eyes those golden beams that reached the palace of the pole star. Now that he is taking some food and drink, the light is about to grow dim." With compassionate mercy, the Jade Emperor declared, "These creatures from the world below are born of the essences of heaven and earth, and they need not surprise us." Seems a bit Scandinavian that way. That monkey in the mountain was able to walk, run, and leap about. He fed on grass and shrubs, drank from the brooks and streams, gathered mountain flowers, and searched out fruits from trees. He made his companions the tiger and the lizard, the wolf and the leopard. He befriended the civet and the deer, and he called the gibbon and the baboon his kin. At night he slept beneath stony ridges, and in the morning he sauntered about the caves and the peaks. Truly, in the mountain there is no passing of time. The cold recedes, but one knows not the year. Gotta put my headset back on. They're getting noisy outside. One very hot morning, he was playing with a group of monkeys under the shade of some pine trees to escape the heat. Look at them, each amusing himself in his own way by swinging from branches to branches, searching for flowers and fruits. They played 2 games or 3, with pebbles and with pellets. They circled sandy pits. They built rare pagodas. They chased the dragonflies. They ran down small lizards, bowing low to the sky. They worshipped bodhisattvas. They pulled the creeping vines. They plaited mats with grass. They searched to catch the louse that they bit or squeezed to death. They dressed their furry coats. They scraped their fingernails. Those leaning leaned. Those rubbing rubbed. Those pushing pushed. Those pressing pressed. Those pulling pulled. Those tugging tugged. Beneath the pine forest and free to play, they washed themselves in the green water stream. So, after the monkeys had frolicked for a while, they went to bathe in the mountain stream and saw that its currents bounced and splashed like tumbling melons, which sounds nice. As the old saying goes, fowls have their fowl speech, and beasts have their beast language. The monkeys said to each other, "We don't know where this water comes from. Since we have nothing to do today, let us follow the stream up to its source to have some fun." With a shriek of joy, they dragged along males and females, calling out to brothers and sisters, and scrambled up the mountain alongside the stream. Reaching its source, they found a great waterfall. What they saw was a column of white rainbows rising, 1,000 yards of snow caps flying. The sea wind blows, but cannot sever what a river moon lights up forever. Its cold breath divides the green glades, its branches wet the verdant shades. This torrent, named a waterfall, seems like a curtain hanging tall. All the monkeys clapped their hands in acclaim. "Marvelous water! Marvelous water!" So this waterfall is distantly connected with the stream at the base of the mountain and flows directly out, even to the great ocean. They also said, if any of us had the ability to penetrate the curtain and find out where the water comes from without hurting himself, we would honor him as king. They gave the call 3 times, when suddenly the stone monkey leaped out from the crowd. He answered the challenge with a loud voice, "I'll go in! I'll go in!" What a monkey! For today his fame will spread wide. His fortune the time does provide. He's fated to live in this place, sent by a king to God's good palace. It has to rhyme. Look at him! He closed his eyes, crouched low, and with one leap he jumped straight through the waterfall. Opening his eyes at once and raising his head to look around, he saw that there was neither water nor waves inside, only a gleaming, shining bridge. But stone monkeys are going to get eroded and get all algae and green and weird. He paused to collect himself and looked more carefully again. It was a bridge made of sheet iron. The water beneath it surged through a hole in the rock to reach the outside, filling in all the space under the arch. With bent body, he climbed on the bridge, looking about as he walked, and discovered a beautiful place that seemed to be some kind of residence. Then he saw fresh mosses piling up indigo, white clouds like jade afloat, and luminous sheens of mist and smoke, empty windows, quiet rooms, and carved flowers growing smoothly on benches, stalactites suspended in milky caves, rare blossoms voluminous over the ground. Pans and stoves near the wall show traces of fire. Bottles and cups on the table contain leftovers. The stone seats and beds were truly lovable. The stone pots and bowls were more praiseworthy. There were, furthermore, a stalk or 2 of tall bamboos, and 3 or 5 sprigs of plum flowers. With a few green pines always draped in rain, this whole place indeed resembled a home. After staring at the place for a long time, he jumped across the middle of the bridge and looked left and right. There in the middle was a stone tablet on which was inscribed in regular large letters, "The blessed land of Flower Fruit Mountain, the cave heaven of Water Curtain Cave." It would be kind of nice, though. It would be very reflective. After staring at beside himself with delight, the stone monkey quickly turned around to go back out and, closing his eyes and crouching again, leaped out of the water. A great stroke of luck, he exclaimed with two loud guffaws. A great stroke of luck. The other monkeys surrounded him and asked, How is it inside? How deep is the water? The stone monkey replied, There isn't any water at all. There's a sheet iron bridge, and beyond it is a piece of heaven-sent property. What do you mean that there's property in there? Asked the monkeys. Laughing, the stone monkey said, This water splashes through a hole in the rock and fills the space under the bridge. Beside the bridge there is a stone mansion with trees and flowers. Inside are stone ovens and stoves, stone pots and pans, stone beds and benches. A stone tablet in the middle has the inscription, The blessed land of the flower fruit mountains, the cave heaven of the water curtain cave. This is truly the place for us to settle in. It is, moreover, very spacious inside, and can hold thousands of the young and old. Let's all go live in there, and spare ourselves from being subject to the whims of heaven. Well, it turns out that all these random strangers are just about to move in, so... For we have in there a retreat from the wind, a shelter from the rain. You fear no frost or snow. You hear no thunderclap. Mist and smoke are brightened, warmed by a holy light. The pines are evergreen, rare flowers, daily new. When the monkeys heard that, they were delighted, saying, You go in first and lead the way. The stone monkey closed his eyes again, crouched low, and jumped inside. All of you, he cried, follow me in! Follow me in! The braver of the monkeys leaped in at once, but the more timid ones stuck out their heads and then drew them back, scratched their ears, rubbed their jaws, and chattered noisily. After milling around for some time, they too bounded inside. Jumping across the bridge, they were all soon snatching dishes, clutching bowls, or fighting for stoves and beds, shoving and pushing things hither and thither. Befitting their stubbornly prankish nature, the monkeys could not keep still for a moment, and stopped only when they were utterly exhausted. The stone monkey then solemnly took a seat above and spoke to them. Gentlemen, if a man lacks trustworthiness, it is difficult to know what he can accomplish. You yourselves promised just now that whoever could get in here and leave again without hurting himself would be honored as king. Now that I have come in and gone out and come in, and have found for you all this heavenly grotto in which you may reside securely and enjoy the privilege of raising a family, why don't you honor me as your king? When the monkeys heard this, they all folded their hands on their breasts and obediently prostrated themselves. Each one of them then lined up according to rank and age, and, bowing reverently, they intoned, Long live our great king! From that moment, the stone monkey ascended the throne of kingship. He did away with the word stone in his name and assumed the title Handsome Monkey King. There is a testimonial poem that says, Triple spring mated to beget... Yeah, I mean, hey, this king did a thing, right? So that I have some respect. Triple spring mated to beget all things, a divine stone quickened by the sun and moon, changed from egg to ape to reach the great way, lone name and surname matched elixir made. Formless inside, he yields no image known, his outward guise coheres in action shown. In every age all persons shall yield to him, hailed a king, a sage, he is free to roam. The handsome monkey king thus led a flock of gibbons and baboons, some of whom were appointed by him as his officers and ministers. They toured the flower fruit mountain in the morning, and they lived in the water curtain cave by night. Living in concord and sympathy, they did not mingle with bird or beast, but enjoyed their independence in perfect happiness, for such were their activities. In the spring, they gathered flowers for food and drink. In the summer, they went in quest of fruits for sustenance. In the autumn, they amassed taros and chestnuts to ward off time. In the winter, they searched for yellow sperms to live out the year. And don't cross those baboons. The handsome monkey king had enjoyed this insouciant existence for 300 or 400 years, when one day, while feasting with the rest of the monkeys, he suddenly grew sad and shed a few tears. Alarmed, The monkeys surrounding him bowed down and asked, "What is disturbing the great king?" The Monkey King replied, "Though I am very happy at the moment, I am a little concerned about the future. Hence, I'm distressed." The monkeys all laughed and said, "The great king indeed does not know contentment. Here we daily have a banquet on an immortal mountain in a blessed land, in an ancient cave on a divine continent. We are not subject to the unicorn or the phoenix, nor are we governed by the rulers of mankind. Such independence and comfort are immeasurable blessings. Why, then, does he worry about the future?" The Monkey King said, "Though we are not subject to the laws of man today, nor need we be threatened by the rule of any bird or beast, old age and physical decay in the future will disclose the secret sovereignty of Yama, king of the underworld. If we die, shall we not have lived in vain, not being able to rank forever among the heavenly beings?" When the monkeys heard this, they all covered their faces and wept mournfully, each one troubled by his own impermanence. But look! From among the ranks of a bareback monkey suddenly leaped forward and cried aloud, "If the great king is so far-sighted, it may well indicate the sprouting of his religious inclination. There are, among the 5 major divisions of all living creatures, only 3 species that are not subject to Yama, king of the underworld." I would have said another Japanese version is Kirin, but I don't know what the Chinese version would be. The Monkey King said, "Do you know who they are?" The monkey said, "They are the Buddhas, the immortals, and the holy sages. These 3 alone can avoid the wheel of transmigration, as well as the process of birth and destruction, and live as long as heaven and earth, the mountains and the streams." "Where do they live?" asked the Monkey King. The monkey said, "They do not live beyond the world of the Jambudvipa, for they dwell within ancient caves on immortal mountains." When the Monkey King heard this, he was filled with delight, saying, "Tomorrow I shall take leave of you all and go down the mountain. Even if I have to wander with the clouds to the corners of the sea, or journey to the distant edges of heaven, I intend to find these 3 kinds of people. I will learn from them how to be young forever and escape the calamity inflicted by King Yama." I am very sorry you did that, G. I was curious what those might be, but you are braver than I. I guess between the 2 of us, you are the king. Lo, this utterance at once led him to leap free of the transmigration net and be the great sage equal to heaven. All the monkeys clapped their hands in acclamation, saying, "Wonderful! Wonderful! Tomorrow we shall scour the mountain ranges to gather plenty of fruits, so that we may send the great king off with a great banquet." Next day, the monkeys duly went to gather immortal peaches, to pick rare fruits, to dig out mountain herbs, and to chop yellow sperms. Yeah, I'm sorry you did that. They brought in an orderly manner every variety of orchids and epidendrums, exotic plants, and strange flowers. They set out the stone chairs and stone tables, covering the tables with immortal wines and food. Look at the golden balls and pearly pellets, red ripeness and yellow plumpness. Golden balls and pearly pellets are the cherries, their colors truly luscious. Red ripeness and yellow plumpness are the plums, their taste a fragrant tartness. Fresh lungans of sweet pulps and thin skins. Fiery lychees of small pits and red sacs. Green fruits of the pyrus are presented by the branches. The loquats, yellow with buds, are held with their leaves. Pears like rabbit heads and dates like chicken hearts. Dispel your thirst, your sorrow, and the effects of wine. Fragrant peaches and soft almonds are sweet as the elixir of life. Crisply fresh plums and strawberries are sour like cheese and buttermilk. Red pulps and black seeds compose the ripe watermelons. 4 cloves of yellow rind enfold the big persimmons. When the pomegranates are split wide, cinnabar grains glisten like specks of ruby. When the chestnuts are cracked open, their tough bronze are hard like cornelian. Walnut and silver almonds fare well with tea. Coconuts and grapes may be pressed into wine. I'm interested in coconut wine. Hazelnuts, yews, and crab apples overfill the dishes. Kumquats, sugar canes, tangerines, and oranges crowd the tables. Sweet yams are baked, yellow sperms overboiled, the tubers minced with seeds of water lily, and soup in stone pots simmers on a gentle fire. Mankind may boast its delicious dainties, but what can best the pleasure of mountain monkeys? The monkeys honored the Monkey King with a seat at the head of the table, while they sat below according to their age and rank. They drank for a whole day, each of the monkeys taking a turn to go forward and present the Monkey King with wine, flowers, and fruits. The next day, the Monkey King rose early and gave the instruction, "Little ones, cut me some pine wood and make me a raft. Then find me a bamboo for the pole and gather some fruits and the like. I'm about to leave." When all was ready, he got onto the raft by himself. Pushing off with all his might, he drifted out toward the great ocean and, taking advantage of the wind, set sail for the border of South Jambudvipa continent. Here is the consequence of this journey. The heaven-born monkey, strong in magic might, he left the mountain road the raft to catch fair wind. He drifted across the sea to seek a mortal's way, determined in heart and mind to achieve great things. It's his lot, his portion, to quit earthly zeals. Calm and carefree, he'll face a lofty sage. He'd meet, I think, a true discerning friend. The source disclosed, all Dharma will be known. It was indeed his fortune that, after he boarded the wooden raft, a strong southeast wind, which lasted for days, sent him to the northwestern coast, the border of the South Jambudvipa continent. He took the pole to test the water, and, finding it shallow one day, he abandoned the raft and jumped ashore. On the beach there were people fishing, hunting wild geese, digging clams, and draining salt. He approached them and, making a weird face and some strange antics, he scared them into dropping their baskets and nets and scattering in all directions. One of them could not run and was caught by the Monkey King, who stripped him of his clothes and put them on himself, aping the way humans wore them. With a swagger, he walked through counties and prefectures, imitating human speech and human manners in the marketplaces. He rested by night and dined in the morning, but he was bent on finding the way of the Buddhas, immortals, and holy sages. I'll need your clothes, your keys, and your motorcycle. He was bent on finding the way of the Buddhas, immortals, and holy sages, on discovering the formula for eternal youth. He saw, however, that the people of the world were all seekers after profit and fame. There was not one who showed concern for his appointed end. You were right, but I couldn't quite remember, and it was important to be timely rather than correct. I think it might be shades instead of boots, but I thought it was clothes, shades, and whatever. Right? Timeliness mattered. Gotta deliver. This is their condition. When will end this quest for fortune and fame, this tyrant of early rising and retiring late? Riding on mules, they long for noble steeds. By now prime ministers, they hope to be kings. For food and raiment, they suffer stress and strain. Excuse me. Never fearing Yama's call to reckoning, seeking wealth and power to give to sons of sons, there is not one ever willing to turn back. The Monkey King searched diligently for the way of immortality, but he had no chance of meeting it. Going through big cities and visiting small towns, he unwittingly spent 8 or 9 years on the South Jambudvipa continent before he suddenly came upon the great western ocean. He thought that there would certainly be immortals living beyond the ocean. So, having built himself a raft like the previous one, he once again drifted across the western ocean, until he reached the West Agaragodania continent. After landing, he searched for a long time, when all at once he came upon a tall and beautiful mountain with thick forests at its base. Since he was afraid neither of wolves and lizards, nor of tigers and leopards, he went straight to the top to look around. It was indeed a magnificent mountain. 1,000 peaks stand like rows of spears, like 10,000 cubits of screen wide spread. The sun's beams lightly enclose the azure mist. Excuse me. In darkening rain, the mount's color turns cool and green. Dry creepers entwine the old trees. Ancient fords edge secluded paths, rare flowers and luxuriant grass in the singular. Tall bamboos and lofty pines. Tall bamboos and lofty pines. For 10,000 years grow green in this blessed land. Rare flowers and luxuriant grass in all seasons bloom as in the isles of the blessed. The call of birds hidden are near, the sounds of streams rushing are clear. Deep inside deep canyons the orchids interweave. On every ridge and crag sprout lichens and mosses. Rising and falling, the ranges show a fine dragon's pulse. Here in reclusion must an eminent man reside. As he was looking about, he suddenly heard the sound of a man speaking deep within the woods. Hurriedly he dashed into the forest and cocked his ear to listen. It was someone singing, and the song went thus. I watch chess games, my axe handles rotted. I chop at wood, zeng-zeng the sound. I walk slowly by the cloud's fringe at the valley's entrance, selling my firewood to buy some wine. I am happy and laugh without restraint. When the path is frosted in autumn's height, I face the moon, my pillow the pine root, sleeping till dawn. I find my familiar woods. I climb the plateaus and scale the peaks, to cut dry creepers with my axe. When I gather enough to make a load, I stroll singing through the marketplace, and trade it for 3 pints of rice, with nary the slightest bickering over a price so modest. Plots and schemes I do not know, without vainglory or attaint, my life's prolonged in simplicity. Those I meet, if not immortals, would be Taoists, seated quietly to expound the yellow court. When the handsome Monkey King heard this, he was filled with delight, saying, So the immortals are hiding in this place. He leaped at once into the forest. Looking in carefully, he found a woodcutter chopping firewood with his axe. The man he saw was very strangely attired. On his head he wore a wide splint hat of seed leaves freshly cast from new bamboos. On his body he wore a cloth garment of gauze woven from the native cotton. Around his waist he tied a winding sash of silk spun from an old silkworm. On his feet he had a pair of straw sandals, with laces rolled from withered sedge. In his hands he held a fine steel axe, a sturdy rope coiled round and round his load. In breaking pines or chopping trees, where's the man to equal him? I don't know that Tom Bombadil actually chopped trees down, though, but in this I would defer to you. The Monkey King drew near and called out, Reverend Immortal, your disciple raises his hands. The woodcutter was so flustered that he dropped his axe as he turned to return the salutation. Blasphemy! Blasphemy, he said. I, a foolish fellow with hardly enough clothes or food, how can I bear the title of immortal? The Monkey King said, If you are not an immortal, how is it that you speak his language? The woodcutter asked, What did I say that sounded like the language of an immortal? The Monkey King explained, When I came just now to the forest's edge, I heard you singing. Those I meet, if not immortals, would be Taoists, seated quietly to expound the yellow court. The yellow court contains the perfected words of the way and virtue. What can you be but an immortal? Laughing, the woodcutter said, I can tell you this much. The tune of that lyric is named A Court Full of Blossoms, and it was taught to me by an immortal, a neighbor of mine. He saw that I had to struggle to make a living and that my days were full of worries. so he told me to recite the poem whenever I was troubled. This, he said, would both comfort me and rid me of my difficulties. It happened that I was anxious about something just now, so I sang the song. It didn't occur to me that I would be overheard. The Monkey King said, If you are a neighbor of the immortal, why don't you follow him in the cultivation of the way? Wouldn't it be nice to learn from him the formula for eternal youth? The woodcutter replied, My lot has been a hard one all my life. When I was young, I was indebted to my parents' nurture until it was 8 or 9. As soon as I began to have some understanding of human affairs, my father unfortunately died, and my mother remained a widow. I had no brothers or sisters, so there was no alternative but for me alone to support and care for my mother. Now that my mother is growing old, all the more I dare not leave her. Moreover, my fields are rather barren and desolate, and we don't have enough food or clothing. I can't do more than chop 2 bundles of firewood to take to the market in exchange for a few pennies to buy a few pints of rice. I cook that myself, serving it to my mother with the tea that I make. That's why I can't practice austerities. Hey, congratulations! Good thing you looked through them first, huh? I'm doing some celebratory jazz hands over my head. Kermit arms, that's what they're called. Hey! The Monkey King said, According to what you have said, you are indeed a gentleman of filial piety, and you will certainly be rewarded in the future. I hope, however, that you will show me the way to the immortal's abode, so that I may reverently call upon him. It's not far, the woodcutter said. This mountain is called the Mountain of Mind and Heart, and in it is the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. Inside the cave is an immortal by the name of the Patriarch Subodhi, who has already sent out innumerable disciples. Even now there are 30 or 40 persons who are practicing austerities with him. Follow this narrow path and travel south for about 7 or 8 miles, and you will come to his home. Grabbing the woodcutter, the Monkey King said, Honored brother, go with me. If I receive any benefit, I will not forget the favor of your guidance. What a boneheaded fellow you are, the woodcutter said. I have just finished telling you these things, and you still don't understand. If I go with you, won't I be neglecting my livelihood? And who will take care of my mother? I must chop my firewood. You go on by yourself. When the Monkey King heard this, he had to take his leave. Emerging from the deep forest, he found the path and went past the slope of a hill. After he had traveled 7 or 8 miles, a cave dwelling indeed came into sight. He stood up straight to take a better look at this splendid place, and this is what he saw. Mist and smoke in diffusive brilliance, flashing lights from the sun and moon, 1,000 stalks of old cypress, 10,000 stems of tall bamboo, 1,000 stalks of old cypress, draped in rain, half fill the air with tender green. 10,000 stems of tall bamboo, held in smoke, will paint the glen Chartreuse. Strange flowers spread brocades before the door. Jade-like grass emits fragrance beside the bridge. On ridges protruding grow moist green lichens. On hanging cliffs cling the long blue mosses. The cries of immortal cranes are often heard. Once in a while a phoenix soars overhead. When the cranes cry, their sounds reach through the marsh to the distant sky. When the phoenix soars up, its plume with 5 bright colors embroiders the clouds. Black apes and white deer may come or hide. Gold lions and jade elephants may leave or bide. Look with care at this blessed holy place. It has the true semblance of paradise. Excuse me. I'm going to take a break after this chapter and get some throat lozenges. He noticed that the door of the cave was tightly shut. All was quiet, and there was no sign of any human inhabitant. He turned round and suddenly perceived, at the top of the cliff, a stone slab approximately 8 feet wide and over 30 feet tall. On it was written in large letters, "The Mountain of Mind and Heart, the Cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars." Oh, I mean, hey, Did you watch me playing Pacific Drive? It was full of jade elephants. It's just crazy full of them. Anyway, immensely pleased, the handsome monkey exclaimed, "People here are truly honest. This mountain and this cave really do exist." He stared at the place for a long time but dared not knock. Instead, he jumped onto the branch of a pine tree, picked a few pine seeds and ate them, and began to play. After a moment, he heard the door of the cave open with a squeak, and an immortal youth walked out. His bearing was exceedingly graceful, his features were highly refined. This was certainly no ordinary young mortal. Thank you kindly.
You're welcome. How's your water holding up?
Oh, I've got lots. This was certainly no ordinary young mortal, for he had his hair bound with 2 cords of silk, a wide robe with 2 sleeves of wind. His body and face seemed most distinct, for visage and mind were both detached. Long a stranger to all worldly things, he was the mountain's ageless boy. Untainted even with a speck of dust, he feared no havoc by the season's rot. After coming through the door, the boy shouted, "Who is causing disturbance here?" With a bound, the Monkey King leaped down from the tree and went up to him, bowing. "Immortal boy," he said, "I am a seeker of the way of immortality. I would never cause any disturbance." With a chuckle, the immortal youth asked, "Are you a seeker of the way?" "I am indeed," answered the Monkey King. "My master at the house," the boy said, "has just left his couch to give a lecture on the platform. Before even announcing his theme, however, he told me to go out and open the door, saying, 'There is someone outside who wants to practice austerities. You may go and receive him.' It must be you, I suppose." The Monkey King said, smiling, "It is I, most assuredly." "Follow me in, then," said the boy. With solemnity, the Monkey King set his clothes in order and followed the boy into the depths of the cave. They passed rows and rows of lofty towers and huge alcoves, of pearly chambers and carved arches. After walking through innumerable quiet chambers and empty studios, they finally reached the base of the green jade platform. Patriarch Subodhi was seen seated solemnly on the platform, with 30 lesser mortals standing below in rows. He was truly an immortal of great ken and purest mien, Master Subodhi, whose wondrous form of the West had no end or birth by work of the double 3. His whole spirit and breath were with mercy filled, empty, spontaneous, it could change at will. His Buddha nature able to do all things. The same age as heaven had his majestic frame. Fully tried and enlightened was this grand priest. Yeah, that would be sort of amusing. Just, "Hey, Subodhi, did you drink all my orange juice again?" Okay, that was funny in my mind. As soon as the handsome Monkey King saw him, he prostrated himself and kowtowed times without number, saying, "Master, master, I, your pupil, pay you my sincere homage." The patriarch said, "Where do you come from? Let's hear you state clearly your name and country before you kowtow again." The Monkey King said, "Your pupil came from the water curtain cave of the flower fruit mountain in the Aole country of the East Why can't I say that? Purvavideha continent. Chase him out of here," the patriarch shouted. "He is nothing but a liar and a fabricator of falsehood. How can he possibly be interested in attaining enlightenment?" The Monkey King hastened to kowtow unceasingly and to say, "Your pupil's word is an honest one, without any deceit." The patriarch said, "If you are telling the truth, how is it that you mention the East Purvavideha continent? Separating that place and mine are 2 great oceans and the entire region of the South Jambudvipa continent. How could you possibly get here?" Again, kowtowing, the Monkey King said, "Your pupil drifted across the oceans and drudged through many regions for more than 10 years before finding this place." Yeah, I was thinking, and also it's so much more clearly written than all the, yeah, that one. The patriarch said, "If you have come on a long journey in many stages, I'll let that pass. What is your surname?" The Monkey King again replied, "I have no temper. If a man rebukes me, I am not offended. If he hits me, I am not angered. In fact, I simply repay him with a ceremonial greeting, and that's all. My whole life's without ill temper." "I'm not speaking of your temper," the patriarch said. "I'm asking after the name of your parents." "I have no parents either," said the Monkey King. The patriarch said, "If you have no parents, you must have been born from a tree." "Not from a tree," said the Monkey King, "but from a rock. I recall that there used to be an immortal stone on the Flower Fruit Mountain. I was born the year the stone split open." When the patriarch heard this, he was secretly pleased and said, "Well, evidently, you have been created by heaven and earth. Get up and show me how you walk." "Hi, Deflair, how you doing?" I'm I mean, uh, there's a lot you're saying that I kind of want to dissect, but I kind of want to. I don't want to go into a long rambling monologue, but I'd love to tackle that later. Now, where was I? Snapping erect, the Monkey King scurried around a couple of times. The patriarch laughed and said, "Though your features are not the most attractive, you do resemble a pignolia-eating monkey." I guess that's a Hussein. "This gives me the idea of taking a surname for you from your appearance. I intend to call you by the name Hu. If I drop the animal radical from this word, what's left is a compound made up of the two characters Gu and Yue. Gu means aged and Yue means female, but an aged female cannot reproduce. Therefore, it is better to give you the surname of Sun. If I drop the animal radical from this word, what we have left is the compound of Z and Shi. Z means a boy, and Shi means a baby, and that name exactly accords with the fundamental doctrine of the baby boy. So your surname will be Sun." When the Monkey King heard this, he was filled with delight. "Splendid, splendid," he cried, kowtowing. "At last I know my surname. May the master be even more gracious. Since I have received the surname, let me be also given a personal name, so that it may facilitate your calling and commanding me." The patriarch said, "Within my tradition are 12 characters that have been used to name the pupils according to their divisions. You are one who belongs to the 10th generation." Boy, you ain't pretty enough for mortal life. "Which 12 characters are they?" asked the Monkey King. The patriarch replied, "They are wide, Guang, great, Da, wise, Zi, intelligence, Hui, true, conforming, nature, Si, sharp, wake to, complete, and awakening. Your rank falls precisely on the word wake to, Wu. You will hence be given the religious name Wake to the Void, Wukong. All right?" "Splendid, splendid," said the Monkey King, laughing. "Henceforth I shall be called Sun Wukong." And so it was that, at nebulous parting, he had no name. Smashing stubborn void needs wake to the void. We do not know what fruit of Taoist cultivation he succeeded in attaining afterward. Let's listen to the explanation in the next chapter. One moment, if you please. Yeah, there's a lot of context and background to this that I'm not really aware of. So if like, don't be shy about adding more detail if you want to, because it will be enlightening. Plus, I get a number of Chinese students, so anything I learn more about them is useful to me too. Definitely got to tackle that later. Chapter 2. We have finished 1% of this story. It only took 1 hour. So at this rate, another 99 hours. Fully awoke to Buddha's wondrous truths. He cuts off Mara, returns to the root, and joins Primal Spirit. Good luck, Montreth. I'm looking forward to a report on your plums. That sounded rude. I'm sorry. Now, we were speaking of the handsome Monkey King, who, having received his name, jumped about joyfully and went forward to give Subodhi his grateful salutation. The patriarch then ordered the congregation... This thing is weird. Sorry, this is the mint I'm having right now. The patriarch then ordered the congregation to lead Sun Wukong outdoors and to teach him how to sprinkle water on the ground and dust, and how to speak and move with proper courtesy. The company of immortals obediently went outside with Wukong, who then bowed to his fellow students. They prepared thereafter a place in the corridor where he might sleep. Next morning, he began to learn from his schoolmates the arts of language and etiquette. He discussed with them the scriptures and the doctrines. He practiced calligraphy and burned incense. Such was his daily routine. In more leisurely moments, he would be sweeping the grounds or hoeing the garden, planting flowers or pruning trees, gathering firewood or lighting fires, fetching water or carrying drinks. He did not lack for whatever he needed, and thus he lived in the cave without realizing that 6 or 7 years had slipped by. One day, the patriarch ascended the platform and took his high seat. Calling together all the immortals, he began to lecture on a great doctrine. Well, maybe you should practice calligraphy. He spoke, with words so florid and eloquent that gold lotus sprang up from the ground. The doctrine of 3 vehicles he subtly rehearsed, including even the law's minutest tittle. The yak's tail waved slowly and spouted elegance. His thunderous voice moved e'en the 9th heaven. For a while he lectured on Tao. For a while he spoke on Chan. To harmonize the 3 parties is a natural thing. One word's elucidation filled with truth points to the birthless, showing nature's mystery. Wukong, who was standing there and listening, was so pleased with the talk that he scratched his ear and rubbed his jaw. Grinning from ear to ear, he could not refrain from dancing on all 4s. Suddenly the patriarch saw this and called out to him, "Why are you madly jumping and dancing in the ranks and not listening to my lecture?" Wukong said, "Your pupil was devoutly listening to the lecture, but when I heard such wonderful things from my reverend master, I couldn't contain myself for joy and started to leap and prance about quite unconsciously. May the master forgive my sins." "Let me ask you," said the patriarch, "if you comprehend these wonderful things, do you know how long you have been in this cave?" Wukong said, "Your pupil is basically feeble-minded and does not know the number of seasons. I only remember that whenever the wood burned out in the stove, I would go to the back of the mountain to gather firewood. Finding a mountain full of fine peach trees there, I have eaten my fill of peaches 7 times. The patriarch said, "That mountain is named the Ripe Peach Mountain." "If you have eaten your fill 7 times, I suppose it must have been 7 years. What kind of Taoist art would you like to learn from me?" Wukong said, "I am dependent on the admonition of my honored teacher. Your pupil would gladly learn whatever has a smidgen of Taoist flavor." The patriarch said, "Within the tradition of Tao, there are 360 heteronomous divisions, all the practices of which may result in illumination. I don't know which division you would like to follow." "I am dependent on the will of my honored teacher," said Wukong. "Your pupil is wholly obedient." "How would it be," said the patriarch, "if I taught you the practice of the method division?" Wukong asked, "How would you explain the practice of the method division?" "The practice of the method division," said the patriarch, "consists of summoning immortals and working the planchette, of divination by manipulation, and working the planchette, of divination by manipulating yarrow stalks, and of learning the secrets of pursuing good and avoiding evil. Can this sort of practice lead to immortality? Asked Wukong. Impossible! Impossible! Said the patriarch. I won't learn it then, Wukong said. How would it be, said the patriarch again, if I taught you the practice of the schools division? What is the meaning of the schools division? Asked Wukong. The schools division, the patriarch said, includes the Confucians, the Buddhists, the Taoists, the dualists, the mohists, and the physicians. They read scriptures or recite prayers, they interview priests, or conjure up saints and the like. You went there, Montrose. Can this sort of practice lead to immortality? Asked Wukong. The patriarch said, If immortality is what you desire, this practice is like setting a pillar inside a wall. Wukong said, Master, I'm a simple fellow and I don't know the idioms of the marketplace. What's setting a pillar inside a wall? The patriarch said, When people build houses and want them to be sturdy, they place a pillar as a prop inside the wall. But someday the big mansion will decay and the pillar too will rot. What you're saying, then, Wukong said, is that it is not long-lasting. I'm not going to learn this. The patriarch said, How would it be if I taught you the practice of the silence division? What's the aim of the silence division? Wukong said. To cultivate fasting and abstinence, said the patriarch, quiescence and inactivity, meditation and the art of cross-legged sitting, restraint of language, and a vegetarian diet. There are also the practices of yoga, exercises standing or prostrate, entrance into complete stillness, contemplation in solitary confinement, and the like. Can these activities, asked Wukong, bring about immortality? They are no better than the unfired bricks on the kiln, said the patriarch. Wukong laughed and said, Master indeed loves to beat about the bush. Haven't I just told you that I don't know these idioms of the marketplace? What do you mean by the unfired bricks on the kiln? The patriarch replied, The tiles and the bricks on the kiln may have been molded into shape, but if they have not been refined by water and fire, a heavy rain will one day make them crumble. So this too lacks permanence, said Wukong. I don't want to learn it. The patriarch said, How would it be if I taught you the practice of the action division? I think that's the one for me. What's it like in the action division? Wukong asked. Plenty of activities, said the patriarch, such as gathering the yin to nourish the yang, bending the bow and treading the arrow, and rubbing the navel to pass breath. There are also experimentation with alchemical formulas, burning rushes and forging cauldrons, taking red lead, making autumn stone, and drinking bride's milk and the like. Maybe this isn't for me after all. Can such bring about long life? Asked Wukong. To obtain immortality from such activities, said the patriarch, is also like scooping the moon from the water. There you go again, master, cried Wukong. What do you mean by scooping the moon from the water? The patriarch said, When the moon is high in the sky, its reflection is in the water. Although it is visible therein, you cannot scoop it out or catch hold of it, for it is but an illusion. I won't learn that either, said Wukong. When the patriarch heard this, he uttered a cry and jumped down from the high platform. He pointed the ruler he held in his hands at Wukong and said to him, What a mischievous monkey you are! You won't learn this, and you won't learn that. Just what is it that you are waiting for? Moving forward, he hit Wukong 3 times on the head. Then he folded his arms behind his back and walked inside, closing the main doors behind him and leaving the congregation stranded outside. Those who were listening to the lecture were so terrified that everyone began to berate Wukong. You reckless ape, they cried. You're utterly without manners. The master was prepared to teach you magic secrets. Why weren't you willing to learn? Why did you have to argue with him instead? Now you have offended him, and who knows when he'll come out again. At that moment, They all resented him and despised him and ridiculed him. But Wukong was not angered at all. But Wukong was not angered in the least, and only replied with a broad grin. For the Monkey King, in fact, had already solved secretly, as it were, the riddle in the pot. He therefore did not quarrel with the other people, but patiently held his tongue. He reasoned that the master, by hitting him 3 times, was telling him to prepare himself for the 3rd watch, and by folding his arms behind his back, walking inside, and closing the main doors, was telling him to enter by the back door, so that he might receive instruction in secret. Wukong spent the rest of the day happily with the other pupils in front of the divine cave of the 3 stars, eagerly waiting for the night. When evening arrived, he immediately retired with all the others, pretending to be asleep by closing his eyes, breathing evenly, and remaining completely still. Since there was no watchman in the mountain to beat the watch or call the hour, he could not tell what time it was. He could only rely on his own calculations by counting the breaths he inhaled and exhaled. Approximately at the hour of Z, he arose very quietly and put on his clothes. Stealthily opening the front door, he slipped away from the crowd and walked inside. Lifting his head, he saw the bright moon and the cool, clear dew, though in each corner not one speck of dust. Sheltered fowls roosted in the woods. A brook flowed gently from its source. Darting fireflies dispelled the gloom. Wild geese spread word columns through the clouds. Precisely, it was the 3rd watch hour, time to seek the way, whole and true. You see him following the familiar path back to the rare entrance, where he discovered that the door was indeed ajar. Wukong said happily, "The Reverend Master truly intended to give me instruction. That's why the door was left open." He reached the door in a few large strides and entered sideways. Walking up to the patriarch's bed, he found him asleep with his body curled up, facing the wall. Wukong dared not disturb him. Instead, he knelt before his bed. After a little while, the patriarch awoke. Stretching his legs, he recited to himself, "Hard, hard, hard, the way is most obscure. Deem not the gold elixir a common thing. Without a perfect man's transmitting a subtle rune, you would have vain words, worn mouth, and a tongue waxed dry." "Master," Wukong responded at once, "your pupil has been kneeling here and waiting on you for a long time." When the patriarch heard Wukong's voice, he rose and put on his clothes. "You mischievous monkey," he exclaimed, sitting down cross-legged. "Why aren't you sleeping in front?" "What are you doing back here at my place?" Wukong replied. "Before the platform and the congregation yesterday, the master gave the order that your pupil, at the hour of the 3rd watch, should come here through the rare entrance in order that he might be instructed. I was therefore bold enough to come directly to the master's bed." When the patriarch heard this, he was terribly pleased, thinking to himself, "This fellow is indeed an offspring of heaven and earth. If not, how could he solve so readily the riddle in my pot?" "There is no 3rd party here save your pupil," Wukong said. "May the master be exceedingly merciful and impart to me the way of long life. I shall never forget this gracious favor." "Since you have solved the riddle in the pot," said the patriarch, and I'm sure there's an idiom there, but I've missed it, "it is an indication that you are destined to learn, and I am glad to teach you. Come closer and listen carefully. I will impart to you the wondrous way of long life." Wukong kowtowed to express his gratitude, washed his ears, and listened most attentively, kneeling before the bed. The patriarch said, "This bold, secret saying, that's wondrous and true. Spare, nurse nature and life, there's nothing else. All power resides in the semen, breath, and spirit. Store these securely, lest there be a leak. Lest there be a leak! Keep within the body. Heed my teaching, and the way itself will thrive. Hold fast oral formulas so useful and keen to purge concupiscence, don't know what that is, to reach pure cool, where the light is bright. You'll face the elixir platform, enjoying the moon, The moon holds the jade rabbit, the sun, the crow, the tortoise and snake are now tightly entwined, tightly entwined. Nature and life are strung. You can plant gold lotus e'en in the midst of flames. Squeeze the 5 phases jointly, use them back and forth. When that's done, be a Buddha or immortal at will. Excuse me. Yeah, it would be interesting to have a different and, so we say, less direct translation, I suppose. At that moment, the very origin was disclosed to Wukong, whose mind became spiritualized as blessedness came to him. He carefully committed to memory all the oral formulas. After kowtowing to thank the patriarch, he left by the rare entrance. As he went out, he saw that the eastern sky began to pale with light, but golden beams shone on the westward way. Following the same path, he returned to the front door, pushed it open quietly, and went inside. He sat up in his sleeping place and purposely rustled the bed and the covers, crying, "It's light! It's light! Get up!" All the others were still sleeping and did not know that Wukong had received a good thing. He played the fool that day after getting up, but he persisted in what he had learned secretly by doing breathing exercises before the hour of Z and after the hour of Wu. 3 years went by swiftly, and the patriarch again mounted his throne to lecture to the multitude. He discussed the scholastic deliberations and parables, and he discoursed on the integument of external conduct. Suddenly he asked, "Where's Wukong?" Wukong drew near and knelt down. "Your pupil's here," he said. "What sort of art have you been practicing lately?" the patriarch said. "Recently," Wukong said, "your pupil has begun to apprehend the nature of all things, and my foundational knowledge has become firmly established." "If you have penetrated to the Dharma nature to apprehend the origin," said the patriarch, "you have, in fact, entered into the divine substance. You need, however, to guard against the danger of 3 calamities." When Wukong heard this, he thought for a long time and said, "The words of the master must be erroneous. I have frequently heard that when one is learned in the way and excels in virtue, he will enjoy the same age as heaven. Fire and water cannot harm him, and every kind of disease will vanish. How can there be this danger of 3 calamities?" "What you have learned," said the patriarch, "is no ordinary magic. You have stolen the creative powers of heaven and earth and invaded the dark mysteries of the sun and moon. Your success in perfecting the elixir is something that the gods and the demons cannot countenance. Though your appearance will be preserved and your age lengthened, after 500 years, heaven will send down the calamity of thunder to strike you. Hence you must be intelligent and wise enough to avoid it ahead of time. If you can escape it, your age will indeed equal that of heaven. If not, your life will thus be finished. After another 500 years, heaven will send down the calamity of fire to burn you. That fire is neither natural nor common fire. Its name is the fire of yin, and it arises from within the soles of your feet to reach even the cavity of your heart, reducing your entrails to ashes and your limbs to utter ruin. The arduous labor of a millennium will then have been made completely superfluous. It is not the wind from the north, south, east, or west, nor is it one of the winds of 4 seasons, nor is it the wind of flowers, willows, pines, and bamboos. It is called the mighty wind, and it enters from the top of the skull into the body, passes through the midriff, and penetrates the 9 apertures. The bones and the flesh will be dissolved, and the body itself will disintegrate. You must, therefore, avoid all 3 calamities." When Wukong heard this, his hair stood on end, and kowtowing reverently, he said, "I beg the master to be merciful and impart to me the method to avoid the 3 calamities. To the very end, I shall never forget your gracious favor." "It is not," the patriarch said, "it is not, in fact, difficult, except that I cannot teach you because you are somewhat different from other people. I have a round head pointing to heaven, said Wukong, and square feet walking on earth. Similarly, I have 9 apertures and 4 limbs, entrails, and cavities. In what way am I different from other people? The patriarch said, Though you resemble a man, you have much less jowl. The monkey, you see, has an angular face with hollow cheeks and a pointed mouth. Stretching his hand to feel himself, Wukong laughed and said, The master does not know how to balance matters. Though I have much less jowl than human beings, I have my pouch, which may certainly be considered a compensation. Very well then, said the patriarch. What method of escape would you like to learn? There is the art of the heavenly ladle, which numbers 36 transformations, and there is the art of the earthly multitude, which numbers 72 transformations. Wukong said, Your pupil is always eager to catch more fishes, so I'll learn the art of the earthly multitude. In that case, said the patriarch, come up here, and I'll pass on the oral formulas to you. You can see the heavenly ladle whenever you look towards the north. There's 2 of them. He whispered something into his ear, though we do not know what sort of wondrous secrets he spoke of. But this Monkey King was someone who, knowing one thing, could understand 100. He immediately learned the oral formulas and, after working at them and practicing them himself, he mastered all 72 transformations. Dang. Well, that makes this training montage rather dull. One day, when the patriarch and the various pupils were admiring the evening view in front of the 3 Stars cave, the master asked, Wukong, has that matter been perfected? Wukong said, Thanks to the profound kindness of the master, your pupil has indeed attained perfection. I can now ascend like mist into the air and fly. The patriarch said, Let me see you try to fly. Wishing to display his ability, Wukong leaped 50 or 60 feet into the air, pulling himself up with a somersault. He trod on the clouds for about the time of a meal and traveled the distance of no more than 3 miles before dropping down again to stand before the patriarch. Master, he said, his hands folded in front of him, this is flying by cloud soaring. Laughing, the patriarch said, This can't be called cloud soaring. It's more like cloud crawling. The old saying goes, The immortal tours the North Sea in the morning and reaches Kangwoo by night. If it takes you half a day to go less than 3 miles, it can't even be considered cloud crawling. I think there's a dunk happening there. What do you mean? Asked Wukong by saying, The immortal tours the North Sea in the morning and reaches Kangwoo by night. The patriarch said, Those who are capable of cloud soaring may start from the North Sea in the morning, journey through the East Sea, the West Sea, the South Sea, and return again to Kangwoo. Kangwoo refers to Ling Ling in the North Sea. It can be called true cloud soaring only when you can traverse all 4 seas in one day. That's truly difficult, said Wukong. Truly difficult. Nothing in the world is difficult, said the patriarch. Only the mind makes it so. When Wukong heard these words, he kowtowed reverently and implored the patriarch, Master, if you do perform a service for someone, you must do it thoroughly. May you be most merciful and impart to me also this technique of cloud soaring. I would never dare forget your gracious favor. The patriarch said, When the various immortals want to soar on the clouds, they all rise by stamping their feet. But you're not like them. When I saw you leave just now, you had to pull yourself up by jumping. What I'll do now is teach you the cloud somersault in accordance with your form. Yeah. Dev Flare here is particularly good at puns, so I think we need some explanation here. Okay. Where was I? Wukong again prostrated himself and pleaded with him, and the patriarch gave him an oral formula, saying, Make the magic sign, recite the spell, clench your fist tightly, shake your body, and when you jump up, one somersault will carry you 108,000 miles. When the other people heard this, they all giggled and said, "Lucky Wukong! If he learns this little trick, he can become a dispatcher for someone to deliver the documents or carry circulars. He'll be able to make a living anywhere." Oh, well, that sounds fun. Yeah, there were puns at hand, so that's why I summoned the Dev Flare. Making your ears prick up. Boing! There's also that talk about the mod pack, so I don't know how that's going along. The sky now began to darken, and the master went back to the cave dwelling with his pupils. Throughout the night, however, Wukong practiced ardently and mastered the technique of cloud somersault. From then on, he had complete freedom, blissfully enjoying his state of long life. One day early in the summer, the disciples were gathered. Yeah, that's the one. The disciples were gathered under the pine trees for fellowship and discussion. They said to him, "Wukong, what sort of merit did you accumulate in another incarnation that led the master to whisper in your ear the other day the method of avoiding the three calamities? Have you learned everything?" "I won't conceal this from my various elder brothers," Wukong said, laughing. "Owing to the master's instruction in the first place, and my diligence day and night in the second, I have fully mastered the several matters." "Let's take advantage of the moment," one of the pupils said. "You try to put on a performance and we'll watch." When Wukong heard this, his spirit was aroused and he was most eager to display his powers. "I invite the various elder brothers to give me a subject," he said. "What do you want me to change into?" "Why not a pine tree?" they said. Wukong made the magic sign and recited the spell. With one shake of his body, he changed himself into a pine tree. Truly it was, thickly held in smoke through all 4 seasons. Its chaste fair form soars straight to the clouds. With not the least likeness to the impish monkey, it's all frost-tried, its snow-tested branches. When the multitude saw this, they clapped their hands and roared with laughter, everyone crying, "Marvelous monkey! Marvelous monkey!" They did not realize that all this uproar had disturbed the patriarch, who came running out of the door, dragging his staff. "Who is creating this bedlam here?" he demanded. At his voice, the pupils immediately collected themselves, set their clothes in order, and came forward. Wukong also changed back into his true form, and slipping into this crowd, said, "For your information, Reverend Master, we are having fellowship and discussion here. There is no one from outside causing any disturbance." "You were all yelling and screaming," said the patriarch angrily, "and were behaving in a manner totally unbecoming to those practicing cultivation. Don't you know that those in the cultivation of Tao resist opening their mouths lest they waste their breath and spirit, or moving their tongues lest they provoke arguments? Why are you all laughing noisily here?" "We dare not conceal this from the master," the crowd said. "Just now we were having fun with Wukong, who is giving us a performance of transformation. We told him to change into a pine tree, and he did indeed become a pine tree." Hey, wow, we've had 2 of these guys today. That's awesome. "Your pupils were all applauding him, and our voices disturbed the reverend teacher. We beg his forgiveness." "Go away, all of you," the patriarch said. "You, Wukong, come over here. I ask you, what sort of exhibition were you putting on, changing into a pine tree? This ability you now possess, is it just for showing off to people? Suppose you saw someone with this ability. Wouldn't you ask him at once how he acquired it? So when others see that you are in possession of it, they'll come begging. If you're afraid to refuse them, you will give away the secret. If you don't, they may hurt you. You are actually placing your life in grave jeopardy." "I beseech the master to forgive me," Wukong said, kowtowing. "I won't condemn you," said the patriarch, "but you must leave this place." When Wukong heard this, tears fell from his eyes. "Where am I to go, teacher?" he asked. "From wherever you came," the patriarch said. "You should go back there." "I came from the east, Purva continent, Wukong said, his memory jolted by the patriarch, from the water curtain cave of the flower fruit mountain in the Aole country. Go back there quickly and save your life, the patriarch said. You cannot possibly remain here. Allow me to inform my esteemed teacher, said Wukong, properly penitent. I have been away from home for 20 years, and I certainly long to see my subjects and followers of bygone days again. But I keep thinking that my master's profound kindness to me has not yet been repaid. I therefore dare not leave. There's nothing to be repaid, said the patriarch. See that you don't get into trouble and involve me. That's all I ask. Seeing that there was no alternative, Wukong had to bow to the patriarch and take leave of the congregation. Once you leave, the patriarch said, you're bound to end up evil-doing. I don't care what kind of villainy and violence you engage in, but I forbid you ever to mention that you are my disciple. For if you but utter half the word, I'll know about it. You can be assured, wretched monkey, that you'll be skinned alive. I will break all your bones and banish your soul to the place of ninefold darkness, from which you will not be released even after 10,000 afflictions. I will never dare mention my master, said Wukong. I'll say that I've learned this all by myself. It's pretty harsh. Having thanked the patriarch, Wukong walked away, made the magic sign, pulled himself up, and performed the cloud somersault. He headed straight toward the east Purva, and in less than an hour he could already see the flower fruit mountain and water curtain cave. Rejoicing secretly, the handsome monkey king said to himself, I left weighed down by bones of mortal stock. The Tao attained makes light both body and frame. 'Tis the world's pity that none firmly resolves to learn such mystery that by itself is plain. 'Twas hard to cross the seas in former time. Returning this day, I travel with ease. Words of farewell still echo in my ears. I ne'er hope to see so soon the eastern depths. Well, with one line, you can turn a 5 into a 9, so it's just a little smudge. Now it's 19. Done. Wukong lowered the direction of his cloud and landed squarely on the flower fruit mountain. He was trying to find his way when he heard the call of cranes and the cry of monkeys. The call of cranes reverberated in the heavens, and the cry of monkeys moved his spirit with sadness. Little ones, he called out, I have returned. From the crannies of the cliff, from the flowers and bushes, and from the woods and trees, monkeys great and small leaped out by the tens of thousands and surrounded the handsome monkey king. They all kowtowed and cried, Great king, what laxity of mind! Why did you go away for such a long time and leave us here longing for your return, like someone hungering and thirsting? Recently, we have been brutally abused by a monster who wanted to rob us of our water curtain cave. Out of sheer desperation, we fought hard with him, and yet all this time, that fellow has plundered many of our possessions, kidnapped a number of our young ones, and given us many restless days and nights watching over our property. How fortunate that our great king has returned! If the great king had stayed away another year or so, we and the entire mountain cave would have belonged to someone else. Hearing this, Wukong was filled with anger. What sort of a monster is this, he cried, that behaves in such a lawless manner? Tell me in detail, and I will find him to exact vengeance. Be informed, great king, the monkey said, kowtowing, that the fellow calls himself the monstrous king of havoc. That's a name. And he lives north of here, Wukong asked. From here to his place, how great is the distance? The monkeys replied, He comes like the cloud and leaves like the mist, like the wind and the rain, like lightning and thunder. We don't know how great the distance is. In that case, said Wukong, go and play for a while, and don't be afraid. Let me go and find him. Dear Monkey King! He leaped up with a bound and somersaulted all the way northward until he saw a tall and rugged mountain. I kidnapped a young number of our young ones, numb ones. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I still like Monstrous King of Havoc. That is, I'm gonna probably use that for something. What a mountain! Its pen-like peak stands erect. Its winding streams flow unfathomed and deep. Its pen-like peak, standing erect, cuts through the air. Its winding streams, unfathomed and deep, reach diverse sights on earth. On two ridges, flowers rival trees in exotic charm. At various spots, pines match bamboos in green. The dragon on the left seems docile and tame. The tiger on the right seems gentle and meek. Iron oxen on occasion are seen plowing. Gold coin flowers are frequently planted. Rare fowls make melodious songs. The phoenix stands facing the sun, rocks worn smooth and shiny by water placid and bright. Appear by turns grotesque, bizarre, and fierce. In countless numbers are the world's famous mountains. Where flowers bloom and wither, they flourish and die. What place resembles this long-lasting scene, wholly untouched by the 4 seasons and 8 epochs? This is, in the 3 regions, the Mount of the Northern Spring, the Water-Belly Cave, nourished by the 5 phases. Yeah, you don't want to get too long of a name either, but anyway. The handsome Monkey King was silently viewing the scenery when he heard someone speaking. He went down the mountain to find who it was, and he discovered the Water-Belly Cave at the foot of a steep cliff. Several imps who were dancing in front of the cave saw Wukong and began to run away. "Stop!" cried Wukong. "You can use the words of your mouth to communicate the thoughts of my mind. I am the lord of the Water Curtain Cave in the Flower Fruit Mountain south of here. Your monstrous King of Havoc, or whatever he's called, has repeatedly bullied my young ones, and I have found my way here with the specific purpose of settling matters with him." Well, I mean, when you phrase it that way, I guess you may have a point. Hearing this, the imp started into the cave and cried out, "Great King, a disastrous thing has happened." "What sort of disaster?" asked the monstrous king. "Outside the cave," said the imps, "there is a monkey who calls himself the Lord of the Water Curtain Cave in the Flower Fruit Mountain. He says that you have repeatedly bullied his young ones, and that he has come to settle matters with you." Laughing, the monstrous king said, "I have often heard those monkeys say that they have a great king who has left the family to practice self-cultivation. He must have come back. How is he dressed, and what kind of weapon does he have?" "He doesn't have any kind of weapon," the imp said. "He is bareheaded, wears a red robe with a yellow sash, and has a pair of black boots on. He looks like neither a monk nor a layman, neither a Taoist nor an immortal. He is out there making demands with naked hands and empty fists." When the monstrous king heard this, he ordered, "Get me my armor and my weapons." These were immediately brought out by the imps, and the monstrous king put on his breastplate and helmet, grasped his scimitar, and walked out of the cave with his followers. "Who is the lord of the Water Curtain Cave?" he cried with a loud voice. Quickly opening wide his eyes to take a look, Wukong saw that the monstrous king wore on his head a black gold helmet which gleamed in the sun, and on his body a dark silk robe which swayed in the wind. Lower he had on a black iron vest tied tightly with leather straps. His feet were shod in finely carved boots, grand as those of warriors great. 10 spans, the width of his waist, 30 feet, the height of his frame. He held in his hands a sword. Its blade was fine and bright. His name, the Monster of Havoc, of most fearful form and look. "You have such big eyes, reckless monster, but you can't even see old Monkey," the Monkey King shouted. When the monstrous king saw him, he laughed and said, "You're not 4 feet tall, nor are you 30 years old. You don't even have weapons in your hands. How dare you be so insolent, looking for me to settle accounts?" "You reckless monster," cried Wukong, "you are blind indeed. You think I'm small, not knowing that it's hardly difficult for me to become taller. You think I'm without weapon, but my 2 hands can drag the moon down from the edge of heaven. Don't be afraid. Just have a taste of old Monkey's fist. He leaped into the air and aimed a blow smack at the monster's face. Parrying the blow with his hand, the monstrous king said, "You are such a midget, and I'm so tall. You want to use your fist, but I have my scimitar. If I were to kill you with it, I would be a laughingstock. Let me put down my scimitar, and we'll see how well you can box." Well, you can still give it a try. "Well said, fine fellow," replied Wukong. "Come on." The monstrous king shifted his position and struck out. Wukong closed in on him, hurtling himself into the engagement. The two of them pummeled and kicked, struggling and colliding with each other. It is easy to miss on a long reach, but a short punch is firm and reliable. Wukong jabbed the monstrous king in the short ribs, hit him on his chest, and gave him such a heavy punishment with a few sharp blows that the monster stepped aside, picked up his huge scimitar, aimed it straight at Wukong's head, and slashed at him. Wukong dodged, and the blow narrowly missed him. Seeing that his opponent was growing fiercer, Wukong now used the method called the body beyond the body. Plucking a handful of hairs from his own body and throwing them into his mouth, he chewed them to tiny pieces and then spat them into the air. "Change!" he cried, and they changed at once into 200 or 300 little monkeys, encircling the combatants on all sides. For you see, when someone acquires the body of an immortal, he can project his spirit, change his form, and perform all kinds of wonders. Since the Monkey King had become accomplished in the way, every one of the 84,000 hairs on his body could change into whatever shape or substance he desired. The little monkeys he had just created were so keen of eye and so swift of movement that they could be wounded by neither sword nor spear. Look at them! Skipping and jumping, they rushed at the monstrous king and surrounded him, some hugging, some pulling, some crawling in between his legs, some tugging at his feet. They kicked and punched, they yanked at his hair and poked at his eyes, they pinched his nose and tried to sweep him completely off his feet until they tangled themselves into confusion. Meanwhile, Wukong succeeded in snatching the scimitar, pushed through the throng of little monkeys, and brought the scimitar down squarely onto the monster's skull, cleaving it in two. He and the rest of the monkeys then fought their way into the cave and slaughtered all the imps, young and old. With a shake, he collected his hair back onto his body, but there were some monkeys that did not return to him. They were the little monkeys kidnapped by the monstrous king from the water curtain cave. "Why are you here?" asked Wukong. The 30 or 50 of them all said tearfully, "After the great king went away to seek the way of immortality, the monster menaced us for 2 whole years and finally carried us off to this place. Though these utensils belong to our cave, these stone pots and bowls were all taken by the creature." "If these are our belongings," said Wukong, "move them out of here." He then set fire to the water-belly cave and reduced it to ashes. "All of you," he said to them, "follow me home." "Great king," the monkeys said, "when we came here, all we felt was wind rushing past us, when we seemed to float through the air until we arrived here. We don't know the way. How can we go back to our home?" Wukong said, "That's a magic trick of his, but there's no difficulty. Now I know not only one thing, but 100. I'm familiar with that trick too. Close your eyes, all of you, and don't be afraid." Dear Monkey King, he recited a spell, rode for a while on a fierce wind, then lowered the direction of the cloud. "Little ones," he cried, "open your eyes." The monkeys felt solid ground beneath their feet and recognized their home territory. In great delight, every one of them ran back to the cave along the familiar roads and crowded in together with those waiting in the cave. They then lined up according to age and rank and paid tribute to the Monkey King. Wine and fruits were laid out for the welcome banquet. When asked how he had subdued the monster and rescued the young ones, Wukong presented a detailed rehearsal, and the monkeys broke into unending applause. He set fire to a cave with cave fire. Come on, Montreth. That's how you do it. Wukong presented a detailed rehearsal, and the monkeys broke into unending applause. "Where did you go, great king?" they cried. "We never expected that you that you would acquire such skills. The year I left you all, Wukong said, I drifted with the waves across the great eastern ocean and reached the western Agaragodania continent. I think I got that right the first try. I then arrived at the southern Jambudvipa continent, where I learned human ways, wearing this garment and these shoes. I swaggered along with the clouds for 8 or 9 years, but I had yet to learn the great art. I then crossed the great western ocean and reached the western Agaragodania continent. After searching for a long time, I had the good fortune to discover an old patriarch who imparted to me the formula for enjoying the same age as heavens, the secret of immortality. Such luck is hard to meet even after 10,000 afflictions, the monkey said, all congratulating him. Little ones, Wukong said, laughing again, another delight is that our entire family now has a name. What is the name of the great king? My surname is Sun, replied Wukong, and my religious name is Wukong. When the monkeys heard this, they all clapped their hands and shouted happily. If the great king is elder son, then we are all junior sons, sons the third, small sons, tiny sons, the Sun family, the Sun nation, and the Sun cave. And yeah, this was what the patriarch warned about. So they all came and honored elder son with large and small bowls of coconut and grape wine, of divine flowers and fruits. It was indeed one big happy family. Lo, their surname is one, the self's returned to its source. This glory awaits, a name recorded in heaven. We do not know what the result was, and how Wukong would fare in this realm. Let's listen to the explanation in the next chapter. And considering these chapters take about an hour each, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and we're just going to start from chapter 3 next week. So I hope that was entertaining. Definitely that was, I don't even know where to go with this, frankly. Yeah, and you know, monkeys are really good at keeping secrets. All right, folks, I'm about to hit the off button. So then we're back to playing video games for the next several days, and then next Sunday, chapter 3 of the Journey to the West. Okay, I'm waiting. What am I waiting? Oh, right. Sorry. My bad. I tried my best. I tried my best to keep up. I thought I largely did. So, all right, folks.